have a wife and 2 kids. You do this work that causes you to receive threats on your life. Why are you doing this work?
Well, you know, I think in some ways, I don't feel that I have much of a choice. I think as a moral, compassionate, caring human being, I have an obligation to work with folks to bring justice to my society. And I've had that commitment longer than I've had my family. And when I met my wife, she knew what I was about and she was okay with that. Now, I do worry about the children because they didn't ask to come into this life. They didn't ask to have a father that has a lot of people who hate him. I hate the fact that I have to tell my kids, like, don't Google my name. You know, don't, because you'll come upon things that are very positive about me and you'll come upon things that are very hateful. I said, just don't look me up online with your friends. Don't do it. I hate the fact that we have to, you know, hide where we live because we've had neo-Nazis and skinheads come to the neighborhood where we lived before when they found out where our house was. So now we've had to be very, very secretive about our property and where we are just to protect my children. I mean, I hate that. But at the same time, I also know that people of color every day when they walk out the door to go to work, to go to school, to get on the train, to get on the bus, to drive around the neighborhood, to go shopping, they are facing death, they are facing threats, they are facing real life and death things. And so if people of color have to deal with racism every day as an existential threat, I'm not really sure that I have the right to say, well, I'm just not going to do that. If they have to do it, I should have to do it.
Let's try an experiment.
Okay.
If you don't mind.
Yeah.
Can I have your hand for a second?
Yeah.
I'm gonna put your hand up.
Right.
I'm gonna put my hand up.
Right.
I actually thought at first, looking at your face,
Yeah.
you were a little bit darker than me.
I think I might be on my face,
my
but
hand,
yeah, my hands are
my
pale.
hand is a little bit darker than yours.
Yeah, yeah,
But you're white
yeah.
and I'm black.
Right, right.
But we kind of like the same color.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
in the hell did that happen?
Well, I think it happened because a couple things. I mean, number one, without getting into our own family history, which, you know, would be interesting, I'm sure, but I think what happened is that we know race is not real. Race is not biological. So the fact that I could be black and be as light as I am, I've known plenty of black folks that were, it goes to show that this is not scientific. And that's important because I think sometimes we get bent out of shape. We believe race is real. So therefore we believe the attributes and the characteristics of racial groups are real. But how can they be real when historically Alabama had one definition for blackness, Mississippi had another, Georgia had another, South Carolina had another. You know, someone not in the South would have had an entirely different definition. Haiti defines blackness differently than the United States. Other countries have defined it differently. So it's clearly, you know, science doesn't change when you cross the border from Alabama to Mississippi. If it's 1/16 here and it's 1 drop here, we're not talking about biology now, we're talking about ideology. So that blackness and whiteness are these things that we create, and we create them for very specific reasons. And in this country was created as a way for elites, European elites, which were always a very small sliver of the white population, to maintain power. Because if they can get African descended folk and poor European folk fighting with each other when none of them own anything, none of them have anything, but they're going to fight each other, that means they're not going to fight the elite. They're not going to try to take what the elite have so the elite can maintain power. And so you look back at the colonies, that was what would happen.
How did oppression of women factor into the 1 drop rule?
Well, it was very, you know, the history of sexism and racism are very intertwined in that regard, because one of the ways that white men maintain control in a sexist way over white women, right, was to police the sexual boundaries of white womanhood by saying, listen, if you have a child with a man of color, that child
with Mandingo, who I really fear.
Yeah, who I fear.
Got some real
and I want,
insecurities about.
and they would try to get the women to fear them too, even though there was very little evidence at the time, of course, because it was a system of enslavement, very little evidence that any enslaved person was going to actually take the risk of sexual union of any kind, whether forcible or romantic, with a white woman, because they would have known the cost. But they tried to create that fear. The white elite planter tried to convince his wife and his daughters that we're going to protect you from that big dangerous man, which is an interesting way to maintain control over him in a racist way, and to maintain control over those women in a patriarchal and sexist and misogynist way. So it was a way for not only white folks to maintain power, but white men in particular, by saying, if you have a sexual relationship with this man and have a child, that child will be enslaved. And so therefore, that's another reason you wouldn't want to do that, because you won't even, your child won't even really be yours. Your child will be property now. And so sexism and racism worked hand in glove.